Welcome to the debate. Imagine paying a 300-pound man millions of dollars and then telling him that his sheer physical strength is actually the least important part of his job.
Wow. Yeah. That's a structural high-wire act, truly.
It really is. It's this exact massive and honestly highly controversial gamble that the Los Angeles Chargers are taking this offseason.
Right. We're looking at an organization that is fundamentally trying to redefine what it takes to survive in the trenches of the National Football League.
Exactly. So today we are focusing on the Chargers' 2026 offensive overhaul under their new offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel. And specifically, we are zeroing in on that wild 63rd overall pick, offensive lineman Jake Slaughter.
The center, out of Florida.
Right. So the core question we're examining today, through the lens of recent draft evaluations, early camp reports, and ESPN's 2026 projections, is this. Is prioritizing high football IQ, system-fit linemen over raw physical power the master key to unlocking Justin Herbert?
Or conversely, is it just a dangerous experiment that's going to completely expose the offense right at its physical foundation?
Right. And before we dive deep into this, just a quick reminder for everyone tuning into our NFL Nexus channel. We want this to be dynamic, fun, and interactive, so please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on what you think about this Chargers strategy.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts, and hey, become a channel member and get exclusive content and perks. Just click the join button below. It really supports what we do here on NFL Nexus.
It really does. So getting back to the trenches, I'll lay my cards on the table first. I actually look at this strategy as a masterclass in scheme alignment. When you bring in an elite, rapid processing lineman like Slaughter, it just perfectly synergizes with McDaniel's complex system.
A masterclass? Really?
I mean it. This isn't just some random reach in the draft, right? It's a calculated move that I believe is going to set Justin Herbert up for an absolutely elite, potentially MVP caliber season.
Well, let's dig into that execution. Because to me, the foundation seems cracked from day one. I mean, I look at this and I see an approach that overdrafts physically limited players, forces them out of position, and honestly fundamentally misunderstands the brutal reality of NFL trench warfare.
You think it's that severe?
I do, because no matter how brilliant a scheme looks on a whiteboard, this threatens to collapse the whole operation. I acknowledge McDaniel is a schematic innovator, sure, but taking Jake Slaughter 63rd overall in the second round, that was a massive reach.
Well,
Scouts had him graded anywhere from the second to the fifth round. That level of variance is a screaming red flag.
Well, some clearly had him in the second, which is exactly where he went. Variance just means there is disagreement on how to value his specific traits, you know?
It means most people thought he was a day 3 pick.
But let's look at what they're actually trying to achieve with Justin Herbert first, because I think that explains the Slaughter pick. ESPN just named Herbert the absolute top quarterback fantasy sleeper for 2026. 4 different experts took him over guys like Jackson Dart or C.J. Stroud.
Right, because they assume McDaniel is going to magically fix the offense.
Because the ecosystem is finally primed for him. I mean, if you look at training camp right now, Mike McDaniel is actively reprogramming Herbert's footwork. He's shortening Herbert's drop back from 5 steps to 3 on standard downs and widening his base.
Okay, sure.
That change literally shaves half a second off the throw. McDaniel's offense requires the ball to be out in under 2.5 seconds. But to execute a highly complex timing-based scheme like that, you cannot just throw massive, slow-footed road graders out there on the offensive line. But you still need size.
You need incredibly smart linemen who can process shifting defensive fronts instantaneously. Slaughter fits that exactly. He had a 79.3 overall PFF grade last year at Florida and an 84.1 pass blocking grade.
In college.
Right, in the SEC. Traditional scouts might knock his physical mass, but his spatial awareness, his angles, his technique, they fit McDaniel's exact neurological profile for alignment perfectly.
Look, I don't doubt the kid's brain. He's incredibly smart. But you cannot outthink a 320-pound defensive tackle who's launching himself at your chest.
It's not about outthinking the physical impact, but this is where the physics of the game actually matter. NFL scout Lance Zierlein issued a very, very explicit warning about this. In his evaluation, He noted Slaughter lacks desired build and mass and explicitly stated he is, quote, unlikely to move pro bodies and will struggle against pure bull rushers.
Which is a valid concern for a traditional system, maybe?
So let me just summarize this Chargers masterclass for a second. They took an undersized center, gave him a contract with $5.6 million in guaranteed money, and are now forcing him to play offensive guard for the first time in his entire career.
He's cross-training?
Against the most powerful human beings on the planet.
I see why you're zeroing in on the anchor strength, really I do, but we really need to stop comparing Mike McDaniel's offensive line to a collection of individual sumo wrestlers.
But drafting a high IQ center and putting him at guard against raw power? That's like putting a brilliant chess grandmaster in a boxing ring.
That's a bit extreme.
It doesn't matter if he can anticipate the opponent's next 5 moves if he gets knocked out by the first punch. The transition from center to guard isn't just changing a title on the depth chart. It changes the geometry of every single snap.
How so? Like for the listeners who might just view the interior line as, 3 interchangeable massive guys.
Oh, it's a completely different world. So at center, you are often working in tandem. You snap the ball, and then you either slide left or right to help the guard, or you execute what they call climbing to a linebacker, meaning you bypass the massive defensive linemen entirely to block the smaller, faster guys at the second level.
Right, you're a helper.
Exactly. You have help. But at guard, Slaughter is going to find himself isolated. He will frequently line up on the outside shade of a 3-technique defensive tackle.
Right, meaning the defender is lined up right on the guard's outside shoulder, sitting in that gap between the guard and the tackle.
Exactly, and a 3-technique tackle is primed to shoot that gap with pure power and burst. Think of guys like Chris Jones. Slaughter is cross-training right now to compete with Trevor Penning, a former first-round pick who actually possesses those massive physical traits, and Coyote Awasika. Look at Slaughter's top athletic comparison coming into the draft. It was Nick Hardwick.
Nick Hardwick is a legend in Los Angeles. I mean, he anchored their line for a decade at a Pro Bowl level.
Yes, he is. But Hardwick was a pure center. He wasn't a guard asked to absorb the localized impact of 300-pound disruptors in a phone booth. When you take a player whose defining trait is intelligence and lateral mobility and put him in a position where sheer anchor strength is a non-negotiable prerequisite, you were setting him up to fail.
Okay, but like I started to say with the sumo wrestler analogy earlier, in a traditional gap-blocking scheme, yes, success is dictated by isolated, head-to-head brute force. But McDaniel runs a modern wide-zone offense.
Right.
It requires a completely different type of blocking. It operates more like a synchronized swimming team than a wrestling match. Success is entirely about coordinated lateral movement across the entire line.
Which still requires blocking a man who wants to run straight through you.
No, it requires establishing positional leverage. Slaughter doesn't need to drive a defensive tackle 3 yards backward into the turf to win the rep. As the whole line steps laterally in unison, he just needs to use his quickness to establish leverage and seal a very specific angle so the defender is technically out of the play.
Assuming he gets to that spot.
And he usually does. Even if the defender hasn't been physically manhandled, he's blocked. And let me add the pedigree here, because you're analyzing Slaughter like he's never seen power before. We are talking about a first-team All-SEC player.
Sure.
A Remington Trophy finalist as the nation's top center. A 2-year captain at Florida. He has spent years facing high-end SEC defensive tackles, which, let's be honest, is the absolute closest proxy we have to NFL interior play. His hand placement, his base, his understanding of leverage. He uses those elite technical tools to compensate for his lack of mass.
He does, yeah. But the physics of the NFL are unforgiving. Technique only gets you so far when the mass differential crosses a certain threshold in the pros. At a certain point, the physics just take over.
But you're assuming Slaughter is out there on an island. If you're wondering how he survives, look at the insulation the Chargers have deliberately built around him. McDaniel's system itself acts as a schematic shield, but so does the personnel.
You mean the tackles?
Right. The Chargers have fully healthy, elite tackles returning. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Both missed most of 2025, but they are back to completely secure the edges. Then you have veteran Tyler Biadasz playing center. Slaughter is physically sandwiched between high-level NFL starters who can absorb the heavy lifting and provide immediate double-team help.
Look, Being sandwiched between good players doesn't stop a 3-tech from bull rushing you straight back into the quarterback's lap if you're in a one-on-one pass set.
The quarterback's timing does stop it, though. That's the secret mechanism here. Herbert's quickened release under McDaniel completely negates the pure bull rushers that Lance Zierlein warned about.
How? A bull rush is a bull rush.
Because of the clock. Like we discussed, McDaniel is shaving that half second off the dropback. The ball is designed to be out in 2.2 seconds. It literally does not matter if a defensive tackle is slowly pushing Slaughter backward.
I think it matters to Herbert.
But in the NFL, it takes a bull rusher at least 2.5 seconds to generate actual displacement and collapse the pocket. By the time that rusher gets there, Herbert has already completed the pass. The physical threat is completely neutralized by the clock.
Okay, that is a phenomenal textbook explanation of the passing game. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
But have you considered what happens when the scheme is inevitably forced to play downhill? Football is not played on a spreadsheet. You cannot dictate the terms and throw the quick game in 2.2 seconds on every single down.
Well, you can try.
If it's 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter, or if it's pouring rain, McDaniel's offense historically relies heavily on establishing the run to set up those exotic passing concepts. The play action, the RPOs, those run-pass options only work if the defense actually respects your ability to hand the ball off and gain yards.
Which the outside zone blocking scheme accomplishes. It stretches the defense horizontally without requiring overwhelming vertical displacement at the point of attack.
But it requires some displacement, or at the very least, it requires not being displaced yourself. Listen to Zierlein again. He said, Slaughter works hard to neutralize opponents, but he won't move them.
Right.
If your guards cannot create vertical movement in short-yarded situations, or worse, if they are getting pushed back into the ball carrier's path, the entire timing of the wide zone is destroyed. If you're listening to this and wondering how running back Omarion Hampton is going to find his cutback lanes, well, he won't.
That's a bit pessimistic.
Not if the interior guards are consistently being compressed into the backfield. Your synchronized swimming routine falls apart the second one of the swimmers is actively being drowned by a defensive tackle.
Okay, the drowning swimmer is a vivid image, I'll grant you that, but you're isolating the run game from the threat of the pass game. And honestly, you're isolating the offense from the rest of the team. If you're worried about the offense stalling out on short yardage because of this line, you have to look at how the front office is building the entire roster to relieve that pressure.
I'm sorry, but how does the rest of the roster fix Omarion Hampton's cutback lanes?
Because the ecosystem is entirely different now. The run lanes will be there for Hampton, because defenses are going to be terrified of the ascending skill talent the Chargers have assembled.
The receivers?
Exactly. You have Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Trey Harris, and a dynamic tight end in Oronda Gadsden II. Defenses simply cannot afford to stack the box with heavy personnel, meaning bringing extra linebackers and safeties up near the line of scrimmage to stop the run, because Herbert will tear them apart on the perimeter.
Sure, they have to respect the pass.
That lighter defensive box naturally eases the physical burden on Jake Slaughter in the run game.
Having passing weapons doesn't change the physical reality of 3rd and 1, when the defense knows you have to run it and they substitute their big guys in anyway.
It dictates how the defense plays the other 90% of the game, though. And beyond the offense, look at the defensive safety net they've built under defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary. The Chargers aren't asking Justin Herbert to score 35 points a game anymore just to win. Look at the secondary. They have a brutal 6-deep safety battle happening right now in camp.
Wait, 6 deep?
6 deep. You have Derwin James, Elijah Molden, Tony Jefferson, R.J. Mickens, Kendall Williamson, and their standout 4th-round pick, Genesis Smith.
That is a crowded room.
When an organization hoards that kind of immense depth and competitive fire on the defensive side of the ball, it fundamentally shifts the burden. It allows McDaniel's system the breathing room it needs to operate efficiently without forcing the ball. If a drive stalls because of a bad run block, well, the defense just gets the ball back.
Okay, I have to completely flip that evidence on its head. You look at that safety room and see a brilliant safety net. I look at that exact same safety room and see glaring proof of systemic roster mismanagement.
Roster mismanagement? How on earth can having too much talent at a premium position be a negative?
Because of what it forces you to do structurally to accommodate it. Right now, if you follow the camp reports, the coaching staff is actively considering moving Derwin James, an all-pro caliber safety, to cornerback.
Which is a testament to his incredible versatility.
No, it's a testament to front office panic. Why are they moving him? Playing cornerback requires a completely different skill set. Flipping your hips, trailing elite receivers man-to-man on the perimeter, rather than playing downhill and diagnosing plays from the middle of the field like a safety.
He can do both, though.
They are moving him just so they can justify keeping 5 safeties on the final 53-man roster, including Genesis Smith, because they drafted Smith in the 4th round and they don't want to lose him to waivers.
Derwin James has the athletic profile to play anywhere in the defensive backfield. Moving him around the formation confuses quarterbacks. That's a feature of a modern defense, not a bug.
It's the exact same philosophical flaw we are seeing on the offensive line. This front office and this coaching staff have an obsession with forcing square pegs into round holes.
I don't see it that way.
Let's look at the pattern. Step 1. They draft a center with a 5th-round grade in the 2nd round, pay him starter money, and force him to play guard. Step 2. They draft a safety in the 4th round, create a massive logjam at the position, and try to solve it by taking their absolute best defensive player in Derwin James and moving him out of his natural position just to accommodate the rookie.
It's just moving pieces around.
It shows an obsession with fitting pieces into a theoretical, whiteboard puzzle rather than letting elite football players do what they naturally do best.
I hear your frustration with the positional shuffling. I do. But innovation in the modern NFL requires that exact kind of positional fluidity. If you only ever play players exactly where they played in college, you never unlock new schematic advantages. Cross-training Jake Slaughter at guard and center gives the offensive line essential flexibility.
But at what cost?
If Tyler Biadasz gets hurt, Slaughter immediately bumps to center, and you don't miss a beat with your calls. It's about maximizing the value of the 53-man roster in a strict salary cap league.
There is a very fine line between flexibility and instability. Yes, cross-training is valuable, but when you draft players who fundamentally lack the traditional physical prerequisites for a position, and your solution is to rely entirely on the scheme to hide their physical flaws, you are building a fragile foundation.
The scheme is the foundation, though.
If Mike McDaniel's timing is off by even a fraction of a second, or if a team like the Chiefs or Raiders forces them into a drop-back passing game where that quick game rhythm isn't available, Slaughter's lack of mass is going to be exposed. The whiteboard gets erased, and the physics of the human body take over.
Well, and my perspective remains that building a highly specific, intellectually demanding offense requires highly specific, high IQ pieces. Was Jake Slaughter a divisive prospect? Absolutely. But he is exactly the kind of elite processor this McDaniel system demands.
We'll see if processing stops a bull rush.
By insulating him with dominant tackles like Alton Slater and pairing him with a quarterback in Herbert whose mechanics are being meticulously optimized for rapid delivery, the Chargers are successfully mitigating those physical risks. This synergy between player intellect and schematic design is exactly why Justin Herbert is primed to dominate the league this year.
Look, while the schematic vision is undeniably appealing, I mean, who doesn't love the idea of a perfectly timed, frictionless offense? Football is ultimately a physical game played on grass, not a chalkboard. Overdrafting a physically limited center to play out a position at guard creates a structural weakness that smart opponents will ruthlessly target.
It's definitely going to be tested.
The upcoming training camp battles are going to be the ultimate crucible for this philosophy. We need to watch Slaughter trying to win that guard spot outright over a massive physical specimen like Trevor Penning. And we need to watch the complex machinations happening in the defensive secondary with Derwin James.
We can certainly agree on that. The crucible of August is going to determine the reality of September. The padded practices, the live preseason reps, that is where we will see if Slaughter's technique can truly neutralize NFL power.
Exactly.
It's where we'll see exactly how Chris O'Leary manages that loaded safety room without compromising his best players. That is where the theoretical becomes factual.
Right. It really highlights the value of looking beyond the surface of a team's offseason hype. When you see a high draft pick or a big coaching hire, you have to analyze the structural risks in their roster building. Because if the Chargers are wrong about this, if McDaniel's scheme cannot overcome a 300-pound man simply pushing you backward, well, this entire offensive experiment could shatter.
But if they are right, they may have just engineered the smartest, most mathematically efficient offense in professional football.
There is obviously much more to explore in the evaluations of this roster, and it leaves us all to decide for ourselves. In the modern NFL, can a meticulously designed architecture truly conquer raw physical limitations?
It's going to be a fascinating season to watch unfold, that's for sure.
It really is, and that wraps up our discussion for today. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe to NFL Nexus, like the video, and drop a comment with your take.
And hit that join button to become a channel member for all those exclusive perks.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning into the debate, and we'll catch you next time.